right, we are back for part 2 of this week's episode of Student of the Gun Radio. And thank you yet again for joining us. We, as in myself and Jared, are pleased to be here with you. And we're going to talk about some Windy City insanity this week. And the main reason that we're discussing this is, obviously because they are insane up in Chicago. We know that, and we're down with that. We understand. But there's even more insanity on display over the last week or so. And as you guys know, I've had the good opportunity here over the last month to write several op-ed pieces for theblaze.com. And if you're a fan of Student of the Gun, which I hope you are, and you have followed either our Twitter or our Facebook accounts or any of our social media or what have you, we share these links with you. Like, hey, Jared's been fantastic about that. He's like, hey, Dad's got another article up on the Blaze, and here's the link to it. Go check it out. But one of the articles that I worked on this week, and I found this story, and I thought this is something that has to be talked about. And it is the lead story, and this is from the New York Daily News.com. This made it all the way out of Chicagoland. Now, as you guys know, there's so much murder in Chicago and Cook County. There's so much violence in there that rarely do people outside of the greater Chicagoland area ever take note when somebody gets shot and killed. But this particular incident was the cruel irony of this one was so blatant. It was so obvious that people were talking about it outside of Chicago, outside of Illinois. And even, of course, in New York, they did a piece. And it was called Chicago Woman Fatally Shot After Attending an Anti-Violence Event. And the woman's name was Lenore Draper. She was age 32. And she was a community activist. She was a community organizer because apparently Chicago, I guess all big cities, but Chicago probably is the one of the preeminent cities that it is a career to be a community organizer. Who else do we know? Do we know anybody else that decided to make a career out of being a community organizer?
Oh, yeah. Somebody that...
The artist formerly known as Barry Soetoro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the artist formerly known as Barry Soetoro was started out as a community organizer. Now...
how's that working for him?
Yeah, well, how's it working for us, I guess we should ask. But Lenore, her big thing was a project called the Project... Was it Orange Tree? Find it for me there quick, Jared. Orange Tree Project. Orange Tree, the Orange Tree Project. Find the verbiage for me. But anyway, she was in an anti-violence group. She was in an organization that raised money to promote nonviolence or anti-violence. And unfortunately, what we find in these organizations, these community organizations, is rather than addressing the issue and going right to the heart of it and saying, we have human beings that are committing violent crimes. They're breaking the law. They're abusing their fellow citizens. They're murdering, raping, robbing, shooting, stabbing, what have you, assaulting. Rather than address the human being, what we do is we'll address the violence in the abstract. And we need to stop violence and cure violence and end violence and so forth. It's like, folks, here on planet Earth, there's always going to be violence. There's going to be some type of violence all the time. Now, I'm going to throw this out to you guys real quick. There is a police officer. Police officers are called to the scene of a bank robbery. And there's bank robbers, and they're robbing the bank, and they're holding people hostage, and then they decide they're gonna make an example of, that they want their demands. So they take a person and an innocent customer, and they shoot them. Okay, and you're like, that's horrible. Well, the police get they get a good position, and they open fire with their guns, and they shoot down the robbers. Boom, 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 boom. Bam. The robbers are down. Did the police commit violence against the robbers, the bank robbers, the felons? Did police use violence against them? And of course, you're like, well, yeah. I mean, I suppose from a technical standpoint, they did. The police used violence against the robbers. I'll bring it home a little bit for you. Your daughter is 19 years old, and you send her off to college with all the best wishes and one of your credit cards. And one night after attending a campus social, she's trying to hot-foot it back to her dorm, and some piece of human debris jumps her and attempts to rape her. And she punches him in the throat and stomps on his testicles. And she was able to get away from the would-be rapist and run and call for help. Did your daughter use violence against the rapist? And is it okay for her to have used violence to stop the rapist? What do you think, Jared? Do you think that's okay? He's over there. He's got the intense face on because I gave him an assignment. He's looking for the Orange Tree Project or Project Orange Tree or something like that. So, will you guys tell me? So, is there times? Are there times in life when violence is the answer? Well, I don't know. When it comes to maybe stopping your daughter from being raped, stopping your home from being broken into, stopping someone from harming you or your children, is it okay to use violence, or is violence never the answer? Well, if you're honest with yourself, you'll say, yeah, sometimes violence is justified. It's not always justified. And if that is your answer to every problem in the world, if that's your solution to everything that ails you is violence, then you have a problem. You have an issue. But the people who will tell you that violence is never the answer and there's never a reason for violence, what they're telling you is this, that you, the peasant, there is never an excuse or a reason why you should be allowed to use violence. Now, let's go back to the police thing. If the police think that that someone is in a house and they're manufacturing crack cocaine and the doors are all locked and the people inside are violent people, is it okay for the police to use a raid team to bust down the doors and go in and slam people on the ground? And if they resist with firearms, can the police shoot them? And most people say, well, yeah, I mean, they have to. But isn't that the use of violence? After every single active shooter situation, whether it's a mall or a church, a school, a marathon, whatever, what do we see on our streets in America? We see armed members of the state displaying firearms. Isn't that the intent to use violence? And people will excuse that. They're like, well, yeah, and in that situation, it's okay. So these anti-violence groups, what they essentially do is they use the word violence. They substitute, they treat it as if it was the word cancer or virus or something like that. Like, if we can just raise enough money, we can come up with a cure for violence. And the whole time they're doing that, they're never actually pointing the fingers at the people that are responsible, at the humans that are responsible. Well, human gangbangers, human scum, human vermin gunned this woman down in front of her house while she sat in her car after she had just returned home from an anti-violence fundraiser. And because of the sick and twisted irony of that, it has made news all across the nation. Now, that is Chicago. And what do we know about Chicago? What is Chicago famous for? Well, Chicago is the murder capital of the United States of America. They have more murders per capita than any other city in the United States of America. We know that. Who did they take the crown from? Well, they took the crown from Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. for a long time had the largest number of murders per capita. Now, let's go down the little bit of memory lane here. Who or which state was the last state in the Union to pass any type of lawful concealed carry. Which one was that? Jared, do you remember which state that was? It was the last one.
What is Illinois?
That's correct. The answer is which state? The state. We're playing a little bit of Jeopardy here. Okay. Yeah. What is Illinois, Alex, for 500? Congratulations.
So would it be what is or who is?
I think what is Illinois? Illinois is a what, not a who.
Where is?
Where is? I don't know. But the answer is, let me see, Illinois. So now what else do we know about Illinois? In order to purchase a firearm or ammunition for a firearm, what do you first have to get, Jared?
A permission slip?
A permission slip. It's called a FOID card. And all of you insane people who who think you're sane and you think you're reasonable, but I'm sorry, Dr. Paul is diagnosing you as clinically insane. You live in Illinois and you're pro-Second Amendment, but you think that getting a permission slip to purchase a gun or ammunition is okay. And de facto, now, what happens when you seek a permission slip from the government to do something? What can happen to you? Well, the faceless bureaucracy of the state could at any point in time rescind that permission slip. Well, why would they do that? Well, did you forget to, did you underpay your taxes last year? Are you a man who has been raked over the coals by the court system and you underpaid your child support? Let me see. Did you seek mental health counseling at any time during the last year or more? Any of these things. Did your driver's license get revoked or suspended? You're like, oh, come on, Paul. Really? Look across America, read a paper. When you seek a permission slip, when you think it's okay for the state to give you a FOID card or you to have to seek one out, and then at any time they can revoke that, that is craziness. So in addition to, and now what else do we also know? We also know that that Chicago and the Cook County area, guys who live in Illinois, I know that Cook County is poison. I know that Cook County is the cancer of Illinois. I got that. I really do. And if you live in southern Illinois, don't write me letters saying, oh, you don't understand, Paul, it's just Cook County. Yeah, I got that. But what you've got is you have the cancerous growth of Cook County that has infected your entire state. And until the rest of you good people in Illinois reach down and, gut check, grab a pair and fight back against these turds, it's not going to change. Now, a couple of weeks ago, it was Easter. And apparently when you're a scumbag gangbanger, you don't take a break for the holidays. And we know that from the first episode where we had two thieves, decided they would use the advent of the Thanksgiving holiday to steal from people, to break into their homes. Well, in Chicago, over Easter weekend, just this Easter weekend 2014, they decided it would be a good time, the gangbangers, for a bloodletting. And they did that, and there was a lot of shooting and bloodletting and youth and young people. See this. Remember, what do we say when the news wants to make you, when they want to make you squirm or they want to make you feel bad? They'll take a 16 or 17-year-old gangbanger and they'll call him a teen or a kid or a child. Sorry, if you're 16 and you're in a gang and you deal drugs and shoot people, you don't get to go by the child thing anymore. You're not a child. What my good friend Ed Nowicki said decades ago, he said, adult time for adult crime. You want to behave like an adult, you're going to do time like an adult. You're going to get adult punishment. You don't get to pretend, oh, I'm just a kid. Well, you want to do adult crime, you do adult time. Now, what do we know about Chicago? Up in Chicago, they have a police superintendent named Gary McCarthy. And Gary McCarthy is, I'm not sure if he's an appointee. I believe he's an appointee. And we have one of Comrade Barry's sycophants up there, Rahm Emanuel, who's currently the mayor of Chicago. And Gary McCarthy does not like you peasants having guns. Gary McCarthy has come out and after the concealed carry legislation passed in Illinois, I believe it was Gary that came out and said that he was instructing his officers not to take chances, and that anyone he saw, any people that he saw carrying guns, were going to be shot. And you're like, what? No way he said that. Yeah, actually he did. Look it up. Duck it. Now, Gary, after the Easter bloodletting up there, he took the Advent Monday morning. This was like 2 weeks ago, 2 Mondays ago, to get on the air there, WGN, I believe it was, 720 in Chicago. And he got on the air with the DJ. What's the DJ's name? Cochran? Steve Cochran, Jared? You got that right there in front of you? I don't want to say the guy's name wrong.
Oh, the information you asked for earlier was the Orange Tree.
It's called the Orange Tree Project?
Yeah.
Okay. That is an anti-violence, anti-gun organization. Yeah, Gary called into a morning show, and he talked to the host, Steve Cochran. And I'm going to set this clip up for you, and then Jared's going to go ahead and play it. But the host is obviously very respectful of Gary, and he's asking him very sincere questions and very troubling questions, and he asks him about are there any rules in these gangs? I mean, is there any like unwritten rules, like you just don't shoot kids or you don't shoot young people? I mean, or what is it all about? And after Steve says that to him, this is what Gary has to say.
But is there any unwritten rules in this crazed, violent culture that you're not going around shooting children, or are all bets off?
I don't think that there's any rules in that culture, quite frankly. And, unfortunately, I mean, we made arrests over the weekend with, I believe it was a 15 or a 14-year-old shooting a 16-year-old. So, I mean, it's just insanity that there's such a proliferation of firearms that they are so easy to get
right.
your hands on. And this, Steve, this goes back to what we always talk about. And the studies show where there's more restrictive gun laws, there's less gun violence. It's not brain surgery. It's really, really simple.
Okay, so you see where Gary takes that? He starts out almost, you think, well, maybe he's going to blame the criminals for their own actions. And you get a little hopeful there. And then he heads right down the big government progressive gun control track and starts using terms like proliferation of firearms. And they are so easy to get. Gary, I got a question for you. This is Paul Markle, host of Student of the Gun. Gary, don't you have a FOID card system in Illinois? Oh, you do? Okay. Do you issue FOID cards to 16-year-old gang members, Gary? What, you don't? Now, hold the phone, Gary. You're telling me that your government-sponsored permission system has not stopped teenage gang members who are criminals and drug dealers and thieves? It hasn't stopped them from getting guns? What? That's crazy talk. So Gary, the answer that Gary has to this situation is, well, it's going to take a long time to address poverty and unemployment and blah, blah, blah. But in the meantime, we need more gun control laws because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to work. Hey, Gary, this is, again, Paul Markle, host of Student of the Gun Radio and Television. And I've got something to say to you, Gary. You're a liar. You're disingenuous. You are a tool. You are a puppet for the state, and you are a liar. Show me one study. Gary says, studies have shown that when you have greater gun control, you have less crime. Gary, which studies? Cricket. Which studies, Gary? Which studies have shown that stricter gun control laws lead to less violent crime, Gary? I'm waiting. I'll sit right here in my chair and wait because there are none unless you just made them up in your little fantasy world. Chicago has had the most gun control of the United States, barring Washington, D.C., and is the murder capital. Washington, D.C. What do we know about Washington, D.C.? Jared, are the gun control laws strict in D.C.?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
When you can put someone, when you can convict someone for the possession of unlawful ammunition for owning muzzleloading bullets,
And it wasn't even ammunition.
the attempted possession of ammunition. Okay, D.C., murder capital, strict gun control. Matter of fact, just up until the Heller decision, it was illegal for any peasant to possess a handgun within the city limits of Washington, D.C. And yet, even though it was totally illegal for you peasants to own guns in D.C., it was still the murder capital. Well, Chicago took that away from them. And Chicago has some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation, if not the most. But Gary here is trying to convince you, Gary, you're a liar. But you know what? When Gary gets on 720 WGN in Chicago, he knows that most of the people that are listening are sycophants. He knows that they're sheep. He knows that they're just going to digest it so he can say his lies. He can spew his propaganda. It's not true. I challenge you to show me the studies that prove that. Because, hey, Jared, have we done the worldwide tour? We've done the England, Great Britain, United Kingdom tour, the Australia tour, the India tour. Wherever else have we been where we considered all of their new gun control laws, and what did we find?
We found that the crime rate is higher.
Now hang on. So you mean in England, when we find that the violent crime rate, that the home invasions
Now hold on.
versus burglaries are 2 to 1?
Right. And what the media reports is that mass shootings are down.
Oh.
Mass shootings are down, but home invasions
Are up.
and violent crime in general.
So mass shootings are down. They haven't had one mass shooting in 10 years.
And we've had people from these countries email us and say, yeah, this is what's happening.
Yeah. Let's talk about South Africa. You don't even want to go there. That place it makes Beirut look calm. Gary, where are you getting these? Where are you getting these? Did you get these from the Communist News Network, the hdouchebagpost.com? Where are you getting your stats, Gary? I'm curious.
Well, 90% of all stats are made up, right?
I thought it was 67%.
67, whatever. And 60% of the time it works all the time. So
That's right. It works all the time. All right. Well, staying on our Chicago thing, there's another group in Chicago. There was a group called Ceasefire, the anti-violence organization. And you may have heard of Ceasefire. This is an organization that they tried to put in place nationwide in all these large cities. And this is one of those cities that's backed by these progressive liberal leftists like Bloomberg and what have you. Now, this one, Ceasefire, actually got a 1 million, and I'm doing the Dr. Evil thing with my pinky, $1 million grant from the city of Chicago to promote nonviolence.
Mini-me, stop humping the laser.
Why don't you and the laser get a room? So we got a group here, Ceasefire Illinois, an anti-violence group. And they got a $1 million grant because, hey, the cause of anti-violence is not cheap, folks. Somebody's got to get paid, right? Well, I tell you what, somebody was getting paid, and that somebody is Theo Hardiman. And Theo Hardiman, he was getting paid. In addition to getting paid, he was beating on his wife. And you're like, what? Yeah, the leader of the anti-violence Ceasefire organization was arrested for domestic battery.
Like, how many volts was the battery?
Shut up. But and shortly after, according to the news story, that Ceasefire had to close a couple of its offices in the greater Chicago, Illinois area because they had run through that $1 million grant and they were already out of that money. And you're like, all right, this is a community organizer. Hey, how many of you out there have small businesses? Raise your hands. Okay, you can put your hands down now. you own a small business, you own a flower shop, you own a convenience store, you own a whatever. How long could you operate your business on $1 million? Probably a couple of years, right? 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, if you did things right, if you had a $1 million operating budget. But we have a volunteer community organization that couldn't stretch out that $1 million. Folks, where do you suppose this money goes? Where do you suppose that money goes? Is it kind of like the PETA, where they have a $300 million office complex, and they all you suckers out there that donate money to these? Well, I can see that. I'm against violence. I should give them some money. Yeah, you should do that. That'd be a great idea. So yeah, that was ceasefire after Lenore Draper was after she was murdered. Some of the members of ceasefire went around the neighborhood and they petitioned and they knocked on doors and they talked to people and violence is never the answer and we need more gun control and so forth. Yeah, okay. Now what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and compare two major metropolitan areas. So you've got Chicago, Illinois, which we know has had some of the strictest, if not the strictest, firearms laws in the United States of America for a long, long time. It is the murder capital of the United States of America. More murders per capita than any other city. And then we're gonna move on from Chicago. We're gonna go east and north, just a little bit north, but very much east, and we're gonna go to Detroit, Michigan. Now, Detroit, Michigan is a city that used to be, it was the Motor City. And by rights, at one point in time, like during World War II, the greater Detroit area was considered the arsenal of liberty. They built tanks and artillery pieces. They built airplanes. My beautiful grandmother, Agnes McClellan, when she was 19 years old, or I think maybe she might have been 18 when she started. She was a riveter in Detroit in one of the airplane factories. She was one of the Rosie the Riveters. That's right. And my grandfather went off to war in the United States Navy. But at the time, Detroit was an engine of progress. It was an engine of industry. They cranked out tanks and cars and airplanes and you name it. Even when I lived in Detroit, they had a huge tank factory outside of Detroit that made the Abrams tanks. I think it was General Dynamics, I believe. And a lot of my family worked in the auto industry. And I was born in Detroit, Michigan, as a lot of you guys know. And during that time, when I was a little kid, people were making money in Detroit. They were making lots of money. The citizens were making money. The government was making money from the taxes and fees and so forth. And here's what happened. The city government of Detroit was taken over by progressive liberal Democrats, and they got greedy, and they got greedier, and they got greedier, and they got greedier, and they got more crooked and more corrupt. Folks, this is kind of anecdotal, but when I was a kid, when I was in high school, teenager, I guess I could say, I had cousins and aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas who lived in the suburbs of Detroit, in the Roseville area, St. Clair Shores area, and so forth. And when we would go to visit them, like 81, 82 timeframe, they had cable TV. They had this new thing called cable TV, and you had home box office. You could watch movies directly on your television. It was crazy. I know. You're like, what? You could watch movies on your television?
I wish we could do that now.
Oh, I know. It was insanity. And they had this channel called Home Box Office, and it was brand new. And between the movies, they used to show these things called music videos. It was a new cool thing. Well, I lived in the city of Detroit. My family did. We didn't have cable. We didn't have the opportunity to get cable. We couldn't get cable. Do you know why that was? Well, I'll tell you why that was. Because the cables all surrounded Detroit. They ran right up to the Detroit border, and they stopped. But you couldn't get cable in Detroit. And I remember being a teenager, 14, 15 years old, whatever, however it was, and listening to, dad and uncles and grandpas talking. And they basically, the city of Detroit would not allow the cable company to bring the cable in and install it in homes in Detroit because apparently they hadn't worked out an appropriate level of kickback to the city yet. And, so that wasn't going to happen. Now, I'm sure they have cable in Detroit now, or maybe they don't. I don't know. Why am I bringing this up? Well, I'll tell you why. Because as you probably know, Detroit is now, it looks like the ruins of 1980s Beirut. It's the population has dropped dramatically. Violent crime has been out of control for decades. Drug use, it was something crazy like record-breaking poverty, record-breaking people on food stamps and government assistance and welfare and so forth. And so what you had essentially is you had 40 years of progressive liberal Democrat mayors who got more and more and more crooked as time went by, and it became more blatant and more obvious. And one of the more recent ones, Kwame Kilpatrick, is currently serving 28 years in prison for multiple corruption charges. Well, what happened in Detroit here recently is you had the people just got fed up. They got fed up with the corruption. They got fed up with it's that definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And that's what they're doing in Chicago right now. We want more gun control, more gun control, more gun control. And that's going to reduce our crime. It never has and it never will. But you're insane. Well, Detroit was doing the same thing. They kept voting for the same kind of people. They kept doing the same thing, hoping that the government could save them. And it turned out that's not the case. Well, recently, Jared, look up do me a favor, duck the name of the current mayor of Detroit, Michigan. And I want to make sure I get his name right because I don't have it on my show notes right in front of me. But this gentleman that I'm going to talk about in a second here, he's a pro-business gentleman. And he ran as a Democrat, but when he ran in the primary, he lost the primary for the Democrat Party ticket. And what he said was, look, I know I didn't get on the party ticket. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run as a write-in candidate. And his name is Mike Dugan, Mayor Mike Dugan.
I was going to say it's in the show notes. I saw it.
Yeah, because you just dropped it in there, you turkey. But anyway, Mike Dugan ran as a write-in candidate. Now, what do we know? What do you know about write-in candidates? If you have a local mayor's race in a town of 2,000 people, can a write-in candidate make it? Yeah, you can convince 102 people to write in, he wins. But a city the size of Detroit, a write-in candidate is going to win? Somebody who doesn't have the major parties behind him? Well, Mike Dugan won. He won as a write-in candidate, and this guy doesn't come from the normal political machine. He's not believe it or not, Jared, he wasn't a professional community organizer.
Good.
Maybe he has a strong business background. And so the people of Detroit, they elected a businessman. And this businessman, they had an interim mayor before him. What we have as a police chief, now who's our police chief up there in Detroit? Talked about our police chief, right? And it is, Jared's making the face.
So while he's looking for the police chief's name, I want to do my duty from the state of Mississippi. And anybody that's in Mississippi listening, if you don't know the name Chris McDaniels yet, he's running to go to Washington is in the Senate. And he needs to go. He needs to be the guy to go there. He's going against Thad Cochran, and Cochran's putting out a bunch of dirty untruths. They're lies, dirty lies.
Okay, I can't believe that we forgot. It's James Craig, Chief Craig, up there in Detroit. Hired a new police chief, Chief Craig. And Chief Craig is famous because when we talked about it on the show, I don't know why I didn't have his name right in front of me, but I got a lot of stuff going on in my mind. But Chief Craig, he's the guy, he is the police chief that unlike Superintendent McCarthy who's towing the big government progressive line over there in Chicago, Chief Craig came out in public and said, look, it is time for you, the good citizens of Detroit, the people that actually work for a living, the people that are actually productive, that are not thieves, robbers, felons, scumbags. It's time for you to arm yourselves, and it's time for you to protect your homes and your property and your families. And that is what they've been doing up there. And so what do we have? We have Chicago, a major metropolitan area that is just, full of crime and gang violence. And their answer is just to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. We're going to keep electing the same progressive liberal Democrat mayors, the same anti-gun, police chief, superintendents, whatever you want to call him. I think he's a 4-star general. McCarthy runs around over there with 4 stars on his shoulder boards like he's Eisenhower or something. And then you have Detroit, Michigan, where the people apparently have said, you know what? 40 years is enough. We tried that insanity for 40 years. It didn't work. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. It's time to arm ourselves. It's time for the good people to possess arms, the good people. And that takes us directly to where we've got a nice shot or a Go Team update from Detroit, Michigan. And this comes to us from our friends at theblaze.com. And the story title is, "She got a gun and concealed carry permit last year and never needed to use them until she did." And this is a 50-year-old Detroit woman. Last Tuesday morning, the dateline on this was May 1st. So this is less than a week old as you hear it probably. She had to use her gun when she heard someone using a crowbar to break into her home. The woman reportedly had bought a handgun and received concealed carry permit training on the advice of her brother, but she hoped that she would never have to use it. Well, she did. A man broke into her home. She warned him, and he didn't. He was not having any of it. So she fired her gun, and reports say that he was struck in the arm and was temporarily in serious condition. Must not have been that serious if it was only temporary. The story says that he was taken to the hospital and was temporarily in serious condition.
Well, they chop his arm off and he'll be fine.
Well, okay. So he was temporarily in serious condition, but he will live and he will do probably 15% of the sentence that he's given because the jails are overcrowded. But this is yet another. That's what, 8 in 8 weeks, 9 in 8 weeks. Home owners that drove off criminals.
Yeah, it's a lot. They're calling for it. They're saying if you're a homeowner and someone breaks in your house, defend yourself.
Yeah, defend yourself. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to roll over. And the police, it's not just the police chief. It goes, and this is the nice thing about what's going on in Detroit right now. We're very proud of them, and we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're a little bit leery, but it's not just the police chief, but the deputy chief, the police department spokesmen. One of the police department spokesmen went out and he was talking after one of these incidents where scumbags broke into somebody's house late at night and they shot him. And he said, he said, I'm addressing all the criminal element in Detroit, and the answer is your time is up.
And speaking of defending yourself, one of our buddies on Facebook, Lauren, just put on our Student of the Gun Facebook, put a link on there, and it says The Illusion of Security. And it takes me to Imager.com, and it says bouncer fights off gunman. Okay, the gunman walks in the door, and you can see it on the camera angle. He walks in the door, starts coming down the hallway where there's a security guard standing there.
And she runs away.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that before.
Yeah, she runs, and then I guess the other dude's a bouncer, and he takes care of it. But the security guard, the one that's wearing the shirt that says security, takes off running.
No, there's security, and there's the – good job, Lauren. Good job for picking up on that. We know we have – Jared, I think we have probably – may not have the most people listening to us, but I think we have the most intelligent people.
Right.
Well, first of all, if you tune in more than 1 week in a row, you obviously are intelligent. You're displaying your signs of intelligence. Unless you're a member of the aggressive and hostile media and you're just tuning in to see what we're saying this week.
Yeah, looking for an audio bit that you can cut and make sound like you want it.
Man up.
No homo.
No homo. Man up. Are you trying to offend gender minorities?
If they're offended by no homo or man up, then yeah.
Well, you let me skip right over that whole gender minorities thing in the last hour.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. He's not going to let me talk about it now.
Yeah, we're 42 minutes in.
What do we know? Gender is masculine, feminine, neutral. When you're talking about animals, okay, and human beings are animals, it's either a male or a female. There is no neutral. I don't care what you think. You're either born a male or a female. Sorry to break your heart there. And when you're talking about men and women, they're either male or female. It's not gender, it's sex. SEX is a correct use of the word. Man up and use the language correctly. All right, let's go to some, we've got some slave state audio here, and this is it's disheartening because we're going to have to, give them, we're going to put them on probation. We're going to put them on slave state probation. Yeah. Go ahead and hit it for me, brother.
I like to teach you all the rules. I get to see them set in stone. I like it when you chain me to the bed, but then you see.
Okay, Minnesota, and for all of our frozen friends up there in Minnesota, we're putting you on slave state probation right now. You are on slave state probation based upon this next story. And again, this comes to us from theblaze.com. Zero tolerance. School's punishment stuns 17-year-old girl and her parents after she accidentally brought pocket knife to school. And this is a Blaze article. Jared will put it up for you anyway. There's a picture of her. She's a lovely young lady. And it says that at her school, what school was this? It just says a Minnesota high school student. United South Central High School. Yes, she was going to the United South Central High School. Okay. Ush. Oh, USC. And Alyssa Drescher said that she was subject to a random search 10 days ago after a drug dog mistook the perfume for a hit in her purse. So they smelled perfume and they checked my purse, she said, and what did they find? They discovered a folding pocket knife in her purse that she used when she was on her boyfriend's farm for chores, okay? And she had forgotten to take it out of there. And so what happened to this little girl? Now you say, well, she had a weapon in school. We can't allow that. We have zero tolerance. Well, is it the possession of the tool or the behavior of the person? Is this a person a problem child? Was this person threatening someone? What's going on here? First and foremost, if your child is attending a school where they feel the need to bring in drug dogs and randomly search their lockers and their property, get your kid out of that school. Is this a prison? Do we send our children to prisons where we have to do random shakedowns? If you're sending your kid into a building where the state is going to come in and conduct random shakedowns and searches with dogs, get your freaking kid out of that school. Jared, did they bring dogs into your school when you were there?
No.
And randomly search your lockers and pull you out and go down to the parking lot? But didn't they do that in Ohio? Is Ohio still on probation? I think those turds that should be on probation up there.
At the
for
near Cleveland or Toledo.
Yeah, what was it, the Joint Development Center or Joint Occupational Center or whatever it was, where what do you call it, Career Center? At the Career Center, when they randomly search a kid's car, or they go randomly search your car. Screw you. How about that, folks? Time to take control of your schools. Time to take control of your communities. So all right. First of all, drug dogs do not mistake perfume for dope. Talk to a dog handler. You can't, if that was the case, think about it like this. If that was the case, all drug smugglers could hide the smell of dope with perfume. Oh, it's just perfume, like that. It's not the same thing. But I can tell you this, that, and my boys in blue are going to get mad at me, but you know what? Tough noogies. Just it's TS. Any dog handler, any dog handler can make any dog hit on anything they want to. I challenge you to tell me that I'm wrong. They can make a dog hit on anything they want to. You want them to hit on a locker? They can make them hit on a locker. You want them to hit on a car panel, on the rear quarter panel of a car? You can hit on the rear quarter panel of the car. It's crap. It's bull crap. Now, am I saying that drug dogs aren't useful? No, drug dogs are useful. Obviously, they are. But if you're running random drug dog searches in a school, you got a problem. You got a big problem. It's time to take the bull by the horns and fix yourself. Fix your community. But subjecting your kids to... I can't even fathom that. Maybe I'm just an old guy. Maybe I'm just an old man. Oh, you don't understand the way the world is today, Paul. We have to do that. We have to submit our children to random drug searches and dogs and, send police into the schools. Folks, if you think it's okay to send police and drug dogs randomly into schools just because, you are already a slave and you don't even know it. I'm sorry, but this is crap. And Minnesota, you're on probation until I decide to pull you off. That's it. That's all. I'm into that story.
All right, we're coming up on the end here. We're about 48 minutes. That was the last story, wasn't it?
No, we got one more. We got the Go Team moment in Texas.
All right, let's go ahead and do that one, and then we got to wrap it up.
All right, this is a Go Team moment. It comes to us from gunsavelives.net. And essentially it is, a lot of you guys have probably heard about this, but it was a concealed carrier stops possible mass shooting at a construction site in Texas. Now, Jared, give us the quick lowdown about how this story shakes out.
What happened was a construction foreman let one of his employees go a couple weeks prior to this incident. And I guess the employee didn't appreciate being let go. So he let it stew for a couple weeks. He brought a gun back to the construction site and he went for his foreman. And I assume that he was going to kill the foreman and probably go on to kill some other people.
Well, it says he drew his gun and opened fire on a former employee. It says both the employee and the foreman were shot during the exchange of gunfire, but they're both currently alive and being treated because the foreman was a concealed carry permit holder and he had a gun and was able to stop the guy.
Right. So the employee, if the foreman was not armed and the employee successfully killed, the employee successfully shot and killed or just shot the foreman, would he have stopped there? I would assume no.
I don't know. Most of these guys, they just keep going until someone with a gun shows up.
It was broad daylight, and the dude was already in the mentality where he was going to bring a gun to the construction site in broad daylight and shoot the foreman because he got let go. Well, there's reasons that you get let go.
Yeah, it says, fortunately, in this case, the foreman was a licensed concealed carrier. He drew his own gun and opened fire on the former employee, both the employee and the foreman. That's the guy who'd been fired, and then the foreman. When you read the story, it kind of makes it look like there was a third one in there, but there wasn't. It was just these two guys. But he drew his gun and he stopped him. Now, compare this to what happened at the FedEx location in Georgia, where the guy went in and just started shooting. And how many of you guys saw that on the internet, on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or what have you, where there was, after the shooting in Georgia at the FedEx site, they took a picture of the outside of the building and the scene, and there's cops everywhere. And, it's like we said, every time there's a shooting, members of the state show up armed to the teeth, and nobody has a problem with that because those are good guns, but your guns as a peasant are bad. There's a big old sign right in the middle of the scene photo, and guess what it is? It's a plastic no guns allowed sign. So apparently in Georgia at the FedEx building, the psycho gunman apparently didn't notice the no guns allowed sign when he went in to start his killing spree.
I'm surprised he didn't just stop at the door and go
I
somewhere
thought
else.
That plastic signs stopped crime. I mean, maybe I'm a crazy man.
Well, they could at least made him pee down his leg a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Scary.
In Chicago, they see plastic images of guns, and it really scares them. So go team in Texas. Hey, the only thing to stop a bad guy with a gun is
a good guy with a gun
or a sword.
or a sword.
Well,
a good guy with an item. So why isn't this story being picked up by mainstream media? You know, if
the FedEx thing was all day long on every channel when
Right.
that happened.
So what about this? This was a good instance. This
A
was
good
something
guy
good.
uses a no. It doesn't fit the media template, Jared. Come on, that doesn't fit our agenda. The agenda is to disarm the peasant, not to show that armed peasants are good. You know, if you're the Communist News Network, armed peasants are never good. Only arms in the hands of the state is good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you again for joining us for Student of the Gun Radio. We appreciate you being here. Don't forget to check out all of our good sponsors, our sponsors at Keltec Weapons, KeltecWeapons.com, Crossbreed Holsters, or CrossbreedHolsters.com. Check those guys out there in Republic, Missouri. Colt, the makers of the LE-901 rifle, semi-automatic 308 and 5.56. And, of course, our good buddies over there in Fort Worth, Texas at XS Sight Systems. Check those guys out, too. Now, if you don't have the mobile app yet, what is your excuse? It's free. All you have to do, go to the Google Play Store, go to the iTunes Store, download it for nothing. And our intrepid web manager, web designer, the wizard behind the curtain, Jared, is actually working on the 2.0 upgrade of the app right now as we speak.
I think I've taken on the title Digital Mastermind.
The Digital Mastermind, not to be confused with the Digital Underground, which is something completely different. So, folks.
Was that a band?
Yeah. Stop what you're doing, because
Yeah,
I'm about to
right.
ruin the image and the style that you're used to. All right.
There, he picked up the cue. He got
He
it.
got it. All right. I know what I'm talking about. All you guys out there think I'm this old guy and that Jared has to hip me. No, it's this dude that's hipping Jared, just so you know. All right, folks. Enough frivolity for 1 week. Remember, watch the show on Dish Network Channel 266. You're a beginner once. You should be a student for life.